Hi everyone, this is Caroline from Mind and Muse Crochet and Fiber Crafts, and I'm here for the first episode of 2021. I don't know if I ever thought I was going to say that, but I decided that I'm no longer counting my episodes since I began because I don't know why, because I thought it was going to be like, what's it going to feel like when I say episode 221? So I'm not even going to pretend that I can keep count of the episodes as they come up. So I am just going to say, welcome to a new episode of the Mind and Muse Crochet and Fiber Crafts, and to the first episode of 2021. And here I am, your host Caroline, coming back to share with you some of the crafty things that I have been up to as of late. And well, I guess I should begin this episode, never mind how I usually begin, but I should begin this episode by wishing you a happy 2021, hoping that all of your holiday celebrations went well. If you are the type of person who actually celebrates Christmas season and the end of the year and all that sort of things. If you're not anyway, this is a recount for us here at the Mind and Muse Crochet and Fiber podcast. So on this channel, it is a new year. And so let me welcome you to a new year of crafty episodes on this channel. Thank you for joining me. If you are a new viewer, well, thank you for taking that challenge, for accepting the challenge of joining me. Hopefully you will get something good out of it. If you are a returning viewer, then thank you for coming back and wanting to spend time with me every couple of weeks on this channel. So, what have I been up to? First of all, I have nothing new in terms of what am I wearing. So, besides wearing some of my Christmas gifts, I don't have anything else to share with you that I'm wearing today. But I do have a couple of finished objects that I had begun to work on at the end of 2020. For example, my Christmas Eve cast on, which were my socks, are finished. This is a design by Elizabeth of the Crochet Cakes podcast. These are her tea time socks. And I do believe that the pattern is available on her blog, crochetcakes.com, if you are interested. I finished them. I have two of them. And I can try and put up a little picture here of how they actually look on your feet, because one thing about crochet socks is that they can tend to look a little bit weird on sock blockers, and even weirder, if that can be said, if you just hold them in your hands. They're not, I say, photogenic as knit socks are. I guess it's because of the way they stretch, but they don't look that bad. This is simply, it's all sparkly yarn, and the purple was from a set that I purchased from Little Bean Loves Yarn a while back. I don't believe she's dying anymore. And this green, I believe I told you, was a Norah George yarn called Thistle. I have to say that I'm quite happy with the way those look. Actually, I decided that I was going to complete these as the socks that I was going to exchange with Elizabeth for our sock exchange in December that I never completed, that I failed on my promise, so they didn't reach her for Christmas. They do look very Christmassy if you look at them in real life because of all the sparkle that the yarn has in it, and she's not a big purple person either, but well, I'm hoping she'll like them. They're short, they're about, I say they're maybe 2 inches here, a foot, which is because she said that she wears mostly short socks. So there, that is my Christmas Eve cast on. I think it's the first time since I've been doing these types of cast on that I've actually finished what I started. Well, in the early days of the year. I usually finish at some point, but I don't think I've ever finished this quickly. So there's one. Do I have anything else? Yes, I do. Those projects that reach the end of the line, I'll just hang these up for a moment. Projects that reach the end of the line, then I have two that are from my last year's makes. And remember, I gave you a list on my last podcast of the projects that I was carrying over from 2021 that I wanted to end before the year. So I'll show you one that I'm very proud of. So this one, I don't know if I showed you it on that last podcast of 2020. I don't remember doing it, but anyway, this is a cushion that I started way back. I think I looked it up and I believe it was March of 2019. Because I was interested in this stitch, which is called, or well, some people call it the spiked granny stitch, because every second stitch, instead of doing a normal double crochet in US terms, you do a double treble crochet into the stitch below the row that you're working on, and so that creates those spikes. And since on every row you're connecting to the same spike, well, then it has those long lines. This is a pooling yarn. If you'll remember that I talked about this way long ago, about yarns that are actually created so that they pool, and that if you try, you could plan so that pooling is actually has a pattern to it. And so what I liked about this, besides the stitch, that it's very textured and I like it a lot, is that it kind of like looks like the pooling occurs in a pattern, but not a chaotic pattern like it happens sometimes. It kind of like looks like the pooling is the way it is supposed to be. I don't know. It's kind of like looks like the pooling is an element of the design. Let's say that way. I showed this on my Instagram feed a couple of days ago, but I showed the back part, because although the front part I had already started, and I do believe that I was almost finished with it, I did not have to add that many rows to this. So this is just a granny square that instead of doing the normal granny square stitch around it, you do that spiked granny stitch. And the pattern can be found on Fiber Spider, which is a channel on YouTube that seriously, if you were to follow no other channel on YouTube, no other tutorial channel on YouTube, I guess that would be a great one to follow. If I knew nothing about any other podcast, I would be following that channel, because he has got so many great tutorials for so many great patterns. He also has some knitting. He does knitting tutorials also. He also reads books on his channel. So there is a lot to go to the channel to get. And so if I were doing nothing else, I would just be there all day on that channel. But unfortunately, my life is a little bit more complicated than that, right? So the back part, however, I chose to do. My guess would be that it probably goes like this, because I remember that this part of the pattern was coming up first. If you look up closely, this is Tunisian crochet. Tunisian crochet. Now notice the difference in the pattern created. This is simple stitch created by the Tunisian crochet simple stitch. This is what I call a little bit more of a chaotic. It looks like an ink spill, if you will. But since I've been working with these yarns a bit, I can also see a little bit of that, what would we call that? The plaid or the gingham pattern that you can actually make with these yarns. I can see it. What happens is that those patterns occur depending on the amount of stitches across. So I did the granny square, and I guess I could just count these rows and find out how many rows around I went. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I count 7. 7 times around, and on the back, I did 50 stitches across. But I used the Tunisian crochet, 5mm on the front and 5mm on the back. Both sides used 5mm hook, but of course this is a Tunisian crochet hook. Because of the length of this, I had to have a special hook. And I really like it. So front of my cushion, back of my cushion, and it just so happened that I had a turquoisey colored, light turquoisey colored cushion that I could put inside of this. And so that is from 2019 actually, not only 2020, but there you go. Here it is. This is Icelandic. Icelandic from Red Heart. And I bought 5 of them for a project that I was going to do with a group of students that never got completed. This is what I have left. I haven't weighted or anything, but this comes with, let me not think and just read it, right? 482 yards. Those are 10 ounces, 283 grams, if any of that says anything to you. So there's a lot of yarn here. And this is what I have left. Now, I can't assure you that I began with the complete 10 ounces. I might have already started something else with it. I'm not sure. But that's what I have left. Okay, so I have one more project on the go with this yarn, if you remember, which is this plant pooling project, which will either be a hat, you go all the way around, it's a square, go all the way around, seam it, and then cinch it at the top. It could be a hat, or it couldn't be another pillow because, you know, I made it pretty short, but it takes a while. I had to kind of like break it apart a little bit to remember how many stitches I had in each color, because the idea of plant pooling is that you have a yarn that has several colors and that each of those colors has a specific length, so that every time you come to that color you can create the same amount of stitches. And doing that is what creates this gingham or patchwork or whatever you want to call it pattern, plaid pattern. So it had been so long ago that I couldn't remember. I had to go rip a couple of rows back so that I could count how many I had in each of those colors. Now, they're not perfect, so it's not always easy. Sometimes you have to go down a hook size, go up a hook size, or sometimes you have to use, I am using there, that's moss stitch, but I've seen it done with a single crochet, as in the pillow, the cushion that I created in December. That was also a long-term project. And well, you notice that in Tunisian crochet, apparently you could actually make it work, but it all depends that you are keeping the same amount of stitches in each of the colors as they occur. So that's still something to look forward to, I guess, if you want to call it that way. But I haven't abandoned those projects. They're very interesting. There's a lot to learn. And that's the way that I like to crochet. I like to crochet and learn. I guess it's partially because of my background, because I've been a professor for so long, and a teacher before that I just don't know how to do anything else. So I always have to learn from whatever project I am taking on. So that's another project from the previous year. Oh, did I not show you? I still have enough of this yarn left so that I could make probably a knit sock. Probably a knit sock. It just doesn't want to leave me, that yarn. Okay, continuing here, I'll also show you then the partner to that project, which was a blanket that I was also completing in the Warlock colorway from Mandala Yarns. Warlock. Those are the colors. And if you've used Mandala yarn, it's 100% acrylic, as is the red heart that I was showing you, and 150 grams to 590 yards. So it's basically, whereas the Icelandic that I was showing you is a worsted, this one is a more or less a DK. So I've completed it. I put in the last ball, and obviously you cannot see the whole thing. It's not actually that big. If I put it on my shoulders, it reaches below my knee, and so I am about 5'5". I'll take a half a foot off from my head and maybe a half a foot off down there. So it's maybe 4.5 feet. No, that is not true, because I remember measuring it, and it is, I believe, from 44 or 45 inches long. But I have not that I've been using it, but while I was crocheting it, I could throw it on top of myself, because it's been a little bit cool here in the evenings, and I could throw it on top of myself and use it as a lap blanket, let's say. It wouldn't be a bed blanket, because it's really, you can't cover yourself up entirely, but it could be a children's blanket, or just a blanket that you throw on top of the couch for the sofa when somebody comes along and it's cold. They can just wrap themselves up. That is also the spiked granny stitch, as I've seen it called, and I'm calling it myself. And I was probably up to here the last time, and that is here. No, I wasn't up to there. More or less, yeah, I was up to here, because I remember the mustard came out twice. What happens is that once you get big enough, the colors that are in it really are not enough to go all the way around. So you don't always get the colors in the same order either in the skeins. So you can't really have the pattern in the exact order, maybe as you would like it, to repeat the colors in the exact order, unless you decide to rip the skeins apart. But no, I'm not going to decide that. I did lose at Yarn Chicken on this one. Let's see. The Mandala yarn, here it is. The Mandala yarn reached up to here on the last side. And so then I had all of this to be done. And I just used a Karen yarn, acrylic yarn that I had in sort of like that forest green, or yeah, that dark green. It is worsted, but it's a light worsted, and so it looks fine. Nobody would ever know that it didn't belong to the other colorway if I didn't tell you. But I did lose, so I guess because of the amount of stitches that I started with, that you'd have to go back and see the first video that I did on this, because I really don't remember anymore. The number of stitches that I started, the small rectangle in the middle, and then you just go around this rectangle. I guess depending on how large or small that rectangle is, well, your yarn will or will not go all the way around your blanket. I did use up every single bit of it, because I was even doing one of those special joins with the yarn so that I didn't have to hide ends, and more than that, I wouldn't have to lose or waste any yarn. And it has 4 balls in it. 4 balls in it. So I'm happy with that. That is finally done and out of the way, and see who I can gift it to in the future. I don't think it makes a good baby blanket, because the little toesies fit through the holes. But for an adult, it might be okay. Might be okay. Okay, so that's another project, lingering whip, that is now out of the way. What do I have left? What I have left are 2 pairs of socks that I also started for you guys well, I also shared with you guys on the last episode, but I've got a little bit of progress. I do have one sock, one knit sock. These are knit socks, just what they call the vanilla socks, a toe, and I usually follow the pattern by toe-up socks by the Sockmatician. I've started out with that one and I just continue doing that in my head now. So whatever toe he describes there, it has there. This is just stockinette stitch going around and around. He uses a short row, a German short row heel, and so that's what I have there. And I don't know, a couple of inches of leg, and then again about an inch of, well, basically I think those are 10 rows of your ribbing, because Clarissa said that she didn't want very long socks. So I've got one. When will I have the other done? No idea, because I am such a slow knitter that it is not even funny. But I was motivated for these because of the fact that we had done that swap in December and that I did not keep my side of the bargain, so I was motivated to get those done. I can tell you that they actually don't look that bad. The only thing that I would have to say that I'm never satisfied. I always get these small holes here at the end of my heel, and I know there's a way to avoid that. I've seen videos on YouTube that the titles say no holes. I just haven't had time to look into it. And that my cast off left me a baggy, what is that? The cuff. Now that is something that I have talked more than once about with crochet socks. At the Region Crochet Socks, I always felt don't look as nice is because a lot of times you end up with a baggy cuff. And I was comparing my socks to the socks that Clarissa made for me for Christmas, and I noticed that her cuff wasn't as baggy as mine, but then I realized Clarissa works cuff down and I work always toe up. And I always work toe up. That is for knit socks or for crochet socks. I always go toe up. So the difference basically is that you don't have to Kitchener on the toe up, and if you're going cuff down, you don't have to cast off. So I am guessing that the reason she gets a neater edge on her cuff is because she doesn't have to cast off. She starts there, and so her tension is more stable than mine is. But I have never made a cuff down sock, neither in knit nor in crochet up to now. You'll remember from the previous podcast that I was also working on a mystery sock, trying to participate in a mystery sock along. And I really don't know why I torture myself with those types of things, because the mystery really does torture me in the sense that I don't feel that I can plan my project because there are details that are lacking, right? If you don't know what stitches, first of all, sometimes you don't even know what you're going to make. There are usually some hints along the way, but until you basically start it, you don't know what you're doing. Sometimes they'll tell you what colors what colors you should focus on, what types of colors, what types of yarn, and but still, I just don't do well with the mystery, which really kind of like ashames me, because you can go to the hashtag on Instagram if you are on Instagram. I believe the hashtag is TTS Socks MCal. TTS Socks MCal. If it's not that, I'll put it up in the bottom of the screen because it took me a while to get to the right hashtag. And there were many other people have finished already up to clue 4, I think, or 3, which is what we've been giving, up to clue 3, because it was the cuff, then it was the leg, and then it was the heel. And so next, I guess it'll be the foot, and then finally the toe, and we'll be done with that. But I haven't been able to keep up because I keep tearing back. I did not like at the beginning the colors that I chose. I didn't feel that I had 3 colors that I liked together. Then I decided, well, I can't use all these socks anyway. Maybe what I'm going to do is just make socks and donate to a cause, to some type of charity. And then I wouldn't have to worry about the colors being me or not being me because I'm not going to wear them anyway. So if I'm looking back now, I think I would have stuck to some of the colors that I originally worked out with and then ripped back. I tried, the designer suggests that it might work well with a self-striping yarn, but I think it all depends on the length of the colors also. For crochet, it is better to have long color changes instead of short color changes because we use more stitches as we go around. And well, I tried several of the self-striping yarns that I have and didn't like them. But I kept ripping back and I said, oh my goodness, but I haven't even taken a picture so that I could at least show my efforts here. So I didn't rip up the last one. Here it is. I've been on the heel in several occasions, but I haven't completed this one. So this is a heel. It's just some like golden yellow, some type of golden yellow that I had a mini skein for some reason. I purchased it at some point, and that's the yellow. Then the yarn for this is Soul to Soul. It's a yarn that I purchased on, I believe it was probably Wool Warehouse, because I was looking for a Christmas sock and just purchased some of the socks that they had on clearance that they looked a little Christmassy to me. So this is the skein. I don't know why it looked a little bit Christmassy to me, but it did. So it's got like a dark gray and a very light green maybe, and then another shade of green, and still a third shade of green, and then a shade of yellow, and it's got all those colors. They don't show you how it looks up when it's knit, so I can't show you. But they're made for Sidar, or Sudar, and this is shade 0162. It's a 75% wool, 25% nylon, 448 yards. The other thing I was looking for, as suggested by the yarns chosen by the designer, that I keep saying the designer and I haven't mentioned that this is a project from the Crochet Project. She suggested you could use a self-striping yarn, but I didn't like any of the self-striping yarns that I chose because they didn't have changes long enough so that my stripe went all the way around my sock. See, the dark gray reaches there, and then it quickly turns into the green. That's also because we're using double crochets, and so I'm going to get color changes a lot quicker. But this obviously is the front of my sock, and this is the back of my sock. And I just decided to go with it because I want to see how it ends up, because I do like very much this stitch that she calls here. She calls it the scale. This is the Tipping the Scales mystery sock along, and this stitch here she calls the scale because Oh, let's see if I can get a better one somewhere. Let's say here, because you've got like the plate of the scale, and then this stitch that spikes up is like that, the part of the scale that holds on the two plates, right? So, I like that very much because notice that there's no holes there. Because of the fact that the shell, basically, in the middle stitch, there's a spike there, then that kind of brings the stitch together and closes the holes. So, yeah, I like that a lot. I do not like the cuff. She designed her own special stretchy cuff, but this is a matter of your tension, the size of hook you're using, the type of yarn that you're using, the thickness of the yarn that you're using, and I could not get good results no matter what size hook I used, how much I tried to loosen my tension so that my stitches always pulled up to the same place, and I just don't like the way it tilts. The way it tilts kind of bothers me. So I think if I'm going to try the second one, but if I keep on having that issue, then I think that I will just make the sock with the regular ribbing that I always choose, that, you know, to me looks a lot neater. It just looks neater. It's got stretch in it. I don't find anything wrong with the stretch, and they're not too baggy on my ankles, and I have very skinny ankles. So all those issues put together is what has made me rip this back continuously. Now I'm just going to continue at least this one to see how the finished sock looks. But then I know I'll be ripping this sock back. I know I'll be frogging it. I'm going to just consider it a learning because I do not like the cuff, the way it turned out for me. Because if you go to the hashtag, as I've told you, there are a lot of pretty socks there. Why can't mine come out that way? I have no idea. Like I say, crochet socks is very subjective to the type of yarn, your hook size, and your tension. So I'm just not getting those things at the right place. Those three things are just not working together correctly. And you guys knows that I've made enough socks so that, you know, these are not newbie issues, I don't think, at least not with socks. So yes, well, maybe they might be, in the sense that I have never made a cuff down sock before. So yes, that's the first time that I made that, and maybe my issues are coming from that I've never made a cuff down sock before. And so I feel that I had to make the cuff really big so that I'll be able to get my foot, the widest part of my foot, which is from your ankle down to the back of your foot. That diagonal line there is where the sock has to stretch the most. And so in order to my foot to fit through that, I had to make it larger than I normally would. Now what happens in the other direction is that, and I might be able to do that here too, is that if I start at the toe with a certain number of stitches, for example, these socks, I started with 56 stitches here. I want 56 all the way up to here. The gusset increases to 66 maybe. I know it increases. And then you create your heel with that amount, half of those stitches at the back, which means 34 stitches at the back, where you had here at the back 28. So those 34 stitches you need to decrease when you reach up here. You need to decrease them. These back stitches, you need to decrease back to 28 so that you continue to have 56 around. And if you are like me, that you have a wide heel, a wide toe, but you have a very thin ankle, then at this point around here, you could even reduce a couple of more stitches, and so that way your cuff does not come out as baggy. But it's the first time that I'm making a cuff down, so I don't really know how to work that into a cuff down sock. But you know, there's always things to learn, so I really do like the leg stitch a lot. I'll just work with it until I find something that I like. I'm not going to give up on it. There's no fault in the pattern, don't get me wrong. The pattern is fine. It's just that I can't get those three elements of tension, yarn, gauge, and hook size to work for me for that pattern. And that happens sometimes. That happens. So, that's all the crafty stuff that I wanted to share with you today. I did want to share one more thing, which was a book that I was gifted by my lovely daughter, Elizabeth. Maybe you have seen it before. I'm just noticing that I did not put my bookmarker where it goes. She gifted me this book. It's called Simple Abundance, a day book of comfort and joy by Sarah Ban Breathnach. And I have not even begun. I began the forward, but I haven't done anything else with it because today was just like crazy. We had men working on an outside construction that my husband wanted to complete, and so I had to make lunch for them because that is a thing here. It's a custom that when you bring people to work in your house and they are working past lunchtime, you give them lunch as part of the deal. Or well, if I'm not here, obviously nobody can give them lunch, but if I'm here, I'll usually try and get that. And then I had to make a dessert for my husband, and because I had been promising a banana cream pie for him for days. We have so many bananas that I'm going crazy here, and I hate for things to go to waste, so I'm going to make that. And he can eat up a whole banana cream pie himself, so there's no problem with that. But it's only until now that I got around to podcasting, and I'm in a little bit of a hurry because today is Friday, and Friday is Pizza Friday, so I need to go make the pizza. But anyway, I did read the foreword this morning to get started. It is a book that is written with one entry per day. So you've got entries from January the 1st to December the 30th. And it is made so that you read one entry per day. And you could start in the middle, if you are gifted the book, let's say in March, then she says, well, you can just start in March, whatever day you're on, and read all around the year until March comes around again. You don't have to read all the beginning if you don't want to, kind of ruin that, let's say, an advice or a piece of advice per day, or lecture or reading per day. Anyway, I did want to read you a short passage from it. I haven't read today, so I won't share that with you, so I don't ruin it for me. But there are tons of quotes that I thought were just this was, I think, one of the first ones that before the actual book starts, where she says, in a time lacking in truth and certainty, and filled with anguish and despair, no woman should be shamefaced in attempting to give back to the world, through her work, a portion of its lost heart. Louise Bogan. So that automatically called my attention because these are times lacking in truth, certainty, and filled with anguish and despair for so many of us. That it's good to know that we as working women, being that we work in our homes, taking care of children, teaching children now, and taking care of the house and a husband and parents, elderly parents who are also ill, or be it that we work outside of the home to bring in a salary, or be it that we're doing both. No woman should be shamefaced into attempting to give back to the world, through her work, a portion of its lost heart. And I'd like to think that that's what I do here when I come back and share with you guys. I'd like to think that it is my attempt to give back to the world through this podcast, through my crochet, through my crafting, a portion of the heart it has lost. And so that's about as far as I've gotten in the book. And so I am going to try over this year to bring little excerpts of this to you because I think it's going to be a great read. So I'll share some more with you the next time. Thank you for joining me. I hope your year has been productive up to now. I know that a lot of people are going back to work. A lot of people are teaching their children again, are working from home again. I start work again next Wednesday. But for me, as a professor, a math professor at a local university, that means a lot of work that I need to get done before that Wednesday actually comes along. So actually, I have already begun to work. And yes, they have shortened my contract. I have fewer classes than I had last semester, so that means there'll be less pay for me than other semesters, and I don't know how that's going to work out, but it's okay. I'll live through it. And so I hope you're struggling but moving forward. Always moving forward. In Spanish we say, ni para atrás, ni para coger impulso. No step backwards, not even to gain momentum. Always forward, at whatever pace you need to go, but always forward. So guys, I'm going to end it here. Thank you for joining me so much. In your comments below, I always share your exchange with you. The comments, I read them, I try and answer back. I might be slow at it. Sometimes I don't do it immediately, but at some point I'll read them and get back to you. And that's what I deem our conversation. And in that conversation, I also deem that we have established here a friendship, a virtual friendship that I am very much appreciative of. And so I thank you for joining me. Thank you for hitting that like button if you feel the need to do so. Thank you for sharing this podcast with others who you think would also enjoy it. And thank you for considering returning back for another episode of Mind and Muse Crochet and Fiber Crafts. Thanks for joining me. Until we meet again, keep yourself safe, keep yourself healthy, and keep crafting. Bye for now.